Alright, today we're going to be making this pattern. It's McCall's M7390 and we're going to be doing the D pattern. Alright, obviously the first thing we're going to do is cut out all the pattern pieces that have the letter D on them. Okay, we're making size 16, so we're just going to cut on this line all the way around. You know, it can be really frustrating working with this giant piece of paper and trying to cut it out, so I just did a rough cut around this one pattern piece, and then I'll go back and cut the detail.
I want to cut it with you.
You want to cut it with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Right there. You see it? See the blue line? Alright, we got all of our pattern pieces cut out. So this pattern calls for 3 different fabrics. I want to find something that's classy and yet comfortable. Alright, I have settled on these 3 fabrics. They're all very soft. They're a woven material. This is a very soft kind of flannel, thick flannel. This is more of a knit linen, and this is a knit sweater. When you're choosing your fabrics, make sure the material you want to feel on your skin. If it's not comfortable, then you're not going to want to wear it. This pattern also calls for interfacing, so I've chosen this more silky. Now we just pin our pattern pieces to the coordinating fabric pieces. Here's a quick trick to save time. This calls for 2 cuts of the fabric and 1 cut of the interfacing. So you just pin your pattern piece to the interfacing, double your fabric over so you have 2 layers. Put the pattern piece on top and pin all 3 layers together so that you just have to make 1 cut instead of 3. Came to the bodice piece that needed to be cut on a fold, and my fabric is really wrinkly, so I don't want to cut it on a fold until I iron it just a little bit right here. Alright, that fold is much happier now. Alright, into my front fabric piece, and it calls for 4 pieces of this fabric. Now this is thick material, but I'm confident in my scissors that they're nice and sharp. I'm going to just fold this guy over twice so that I can pin and just make 1 cut. Alright, it's time for the lower side pieces, and I just love the feel of this fabric. Alright, I'm pinning my last piece of fabric. It's the arm sleeves. Alright, now that I've done the rough cut of all of my pieces, it's time to take the scissors and do the detailed cut. And this 4 layers is pretty thick. You need to get your little scissors. Might need to sharpen those guys, huh? And cut the markings. So just make a little choop, choop. What about this one right here? What about that one? Is that the triangle? Yeah. 2 triangles together.
Pink.
Pink? Oh, pink pin. Yeah. Here's a size 16.
And fold part of it. Part of it.
Now that we've got all of our pattern pieces cut out and marked, we're going to go to our sewing directions. First thing is stitch upper side front and upper back together at the shoulders and sides. Here are pattern pieces 1 and 2. We're going to remove the pins and sew these right sides together. Now we have the back side right side up and front side right side down, and we're going to pin and sew along the shoulder seams and the side seams. Now we're finally at our sewing machine, and we're using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Here we go. Move the pin. I like to move my pins. You don't absolutely have to, but I don't want to take a chance of breaking a needle. Good girl. You're doing great being my little pin girl.
Thanks.
Alright, we jump on over here to number 12. Right here, pieces 6 and 7. They're this fabric. Alright. The back is right side up and the sides are right side down, and we're just going to sew down each side. Got that done, so they have our little flaps. Okay, now we're just going to do a stay stitch all the way around the top section. So I'm going to come over here and switch my needle or my thread to a 5. Okay, it's time to pin the top to the bottom. Looks like the wrong sides are facing me, and I'm going to sew right around here. So let's do that. Wrong side up, pin these together and sew. When we're pinning these pieces together, let's just make sure that our seams line up. Pin those together. Got these 2 pieces pinned together, and now we're sewing again with our 5/8 inch seam allowance, opening up the seams as we go. Let's pull back and see what this looks like. This is the bottom, this is the top. Sewn together, seams are lined up. Okay, next step. All right, now we're going to hem the bottom edge of this top. I'm going to just do a 1/4 of an inch little long stitch and then turn it under and do a 5/8 inch hem. This hem is looking nice and clean. It can be a little tricky hemming on a curved edge, but if you just fold under as you go and take your time, no problem. Okay, on the front piece, we are basting this to this. A nice long basting stitch. Okay, now right sides together, we're going to stitch this front all the way down, and we're going to start right at this 16 hole. We're going to do the same thing to these 2 that are basted together, starting at that circle for size 16. So right sides together all the way down. This is perhaps the trickiest part we've come to, so I'm going to walk myself through this slowly. Okay, so we've got the basted edges and the front side, right sides together, and it wants us to stitch along this opening, and it's asking us to stitch along the bottom. Let's see how that turns out. Second side, I'm going to stop at that hole. Okay, now that that's done, I'm supposed to turn this right side out. So let's see how that turns out. The bottom is hemmed and the top is hemmed. I'm going to have to press this because it's getting really bulky. Okay, this ironing is making this a whole lot better. All right, this next step I went ahead and did because, to be honest, I couldn't really wrap my brain around what it was asking. I figured it out. It wants us to put the right side down to the right side of the whole garment and then pin right sides together like that on both sides. Okay, so I've pinned down one side entirely, and those are right sides together. I just wanted to mention these little notches. This is where they come in handy. When those line up, that just really helps reinforce as to why you make the notches. Sometimes you're like, why do I need the notches? But then when you're going to do things like this and you see that the notches line up, it's like, okay, I'm doing this right, yay. All right, now it's time to come over to the machine and sew down both of these sides. And when you get to the very bottom, hold those bottom hem pieces together. Don't sew over your fingers. All right, Becky, you can pull it out.
You can pull it out, Mom.
Okay, you can pull it out.
Mom,
Thank you, sweetie.
you're welcome.
Okay, so we've got both sides sewn right sides together. Now we're going to turn it inside out, or right side out.
And now we just turned it right side out, and now it's a beautiful shirt.
Well, it's not done yet,
Not done yet, but
that's
it's
where we
still
are so far. Okay, let's keep working. Everything's looking good, so it's time to go in with the collar. This is right sides together. Now we're going to pin and stitch the ends and all the way around the neck band. Lift up, turn that corner, and go. We are back around to the final side. Turning the neck band right side out. This this is where it starts getting exciting. The ironing just makes those nice crisp edges. All right, so now it's time to take our garment and we're going to attach the collar to it. It's going to sit like that, so we need to put it together backwards, and we're going to pin that all the way around and stitch. Now that it's all pinned, I'm going to go back and first do a basting stitch just to hold it. Back around to the front of the collar. Now we're just going to trim this edge up. Now we're going to go back to our regular stitch, and we're going to stitch just to the left side of that basting stitch all the way around again. All right, now that that's done, turn it right side out, and we're just going to press this down so it's nice and tight. As you can see, this garment is starting to come together really nicely. All we have left to do are the sleeves. Okay, for the sleeve, we're going to ease stitch this upper edge so that we can gather it where we need to, and then we're going to stitch the side. Okay, starting right above this notch on both sides, just going to do ease stitch, which is just 2 long basting stitches all the way to that notch. At the end, you want to leave your threads long. All right, there's my ease stitching. I'm going to do that on the other sleeve now. All right, now that I've done my ease stitching on both sleeves, I'm going to seam together the sleeve, right sides together, of course, all the way down on both sleeves. Now the other one. Now that both sleeves are sewn, we got to make a casing for the elastic. Okay, we are finally ready to attach the sleeve to the shirt. I find it easiest to turn the bodice wrong side out so that I could put right sides together by inserting the sleeve inside, go through the hole. See how I took that sleeve and tucked that guy inside so that I could have right sides together. Okay, I'm getting kind of tight in here just so you can see. See how the sleeve is longer than the back. So I'm going to take these basting stitches and take the long little tails, and I'm just going to pull them and gather up. And then see how that gathers? And then we're just going to stretch that out as we need to line these up so that they are perfectly together. You want to get those gathering stitches as evenly spread out along that side as you can. So now they match up. All right, now that we're all pinned, we're just going to do a stay stitch all the way around to hold it in place. All right, let's check this and make sure everything is attached. Okay, so now we're going to go back and do a regular stitch. All right, one sleeve is attached, and now we're going to do the other. Remember, we're turning the right side of the sleeve out and the garment inside out, and we're slipping the sleeve inside, match the top seam and the bottom seam of the sleeve and pin. All right, here we are on our final steps. We are almost done just doing the basting. Okay, I checked and made sure everything was attached on the inside. I'm going back with the final stitch. Okay, doing some final trimming, and then I'm going to cut the threads, get it all cleaned up. We're going to see what this thing looks like. Finished garment. The sleeves are kind of loose. I really like it. Don't forget to subscribe if you like these tutorials, and I'll see you next time.